tablet.
Yeah, because it will be a show.
Officer Burler, did you want to say something
Yes,
real
please.
quick?
So I just wanted to pose the question to the council. Are the council members screening through the screening process on the way in, or are we allowing people to come through the back door? And the reason why I ask is part of our procedures is we actually come in and search all of the council chambers, the meeting area, the break. Absolutely.
Yep.
I'll let you guys do your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. See ya. Okay, let's go to our pre-meeting items. Open container area. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. We are at that time of year, believe it or not, already where we need to talk about open container and make sure we're in accordance with what your desires are for this program and that kind of thing. As you can see, we've been talking about this program and what we would recommend that might be different. You're not going to hear a whole lot different from what we talked about in our debrief from the fall, so hopefully much of this wouldn't be a surprise. One of the things I can tell you that would be not really different, but something that we should be aware of. After having met with the State Land Investment Board last week, they are very much not interested in having alcohol in their parking lot. So while they did support food trucks, they weren't supportive of the dispensing or consumption of alcohol on their lot.
I thought that they allowed the consumption, no dispensing.
I got the impression they were not good with either, and so
Because I got the impression that it was okay with the consumption. Tom Walters wasn't okay with anything.
yeah, right. Yeah, I think that was what carried the day, the nothing. But I can certainly double check. We have not written the parking lot into the open container area in the past. My suggestion is we continue that, and if we get different direction from the state, I'll be more than happy to be sure y'all are aware of that as a possible amendment to the container area. But at this point, I feel like the direction is the parking lot's off limits. Now the pathway is interesting because the pathway that bisects the two halves, if you will, and we talked about this at that meeting, is used integrally as the art walk. And generally speaking, I can't recall what the allowances are for that pathway for art walk and open containers and all that kind of thing. But the pathway is a different piece of property than it is
But
the
it's
parking
going
lot.
through the two, though.
Exactly. I mean, it's right down
Tom's
the middle.
going to come get you. He was pretty serious about all of that.
I know. So that would be sort of an asterisk that I would put on this thing, but I don't think we do open containers for the art walks anyway. So I'm looking at Florida because they issue those.
Did you say no?
It's a special permit.
Yeah, we do
Okay.
special permits for.
So they do walk alcohol up and down the parkway trail.
I don't think it's up the Parkway Trail, just the businesses that apply for it.
At the very end?
Yeah.
Okay. So chances are we wouldn't have that issue along the parkway there either.
No, we should not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I don't think that it would be a huge issue because, I mean, technically people are going to be parking there, right? So they shouldn't be walking out of their vehicle with a container of alcohol, correct? Theoretically, correct?
Well,
And they shouldn't be getting into said vehicle with alcohol in their hand.
But if they were able to sell out of that parking lot, that's where the difference is.
or if they were able to walk, say, from the NIC
Right.
all the way to Art 321 with a glass of alcohol or whatever it is, a cup of alcohol because of the art walk.
They'll probably be gone by the time they get from one point to the other.
Yeah, that certainly could be, but I don't think that's an issue though, because indeed, as Fleur mentioned, those permits are issued for vendors specific, not for the entire area.
Steve?
Well, and they wouldn't be able to walk. I mean, they can only be in this area anyway.
Right, for the open container.
Right,
That's
so
exactly
they wouldn't be able to leave the neck anyways, and
To that,
legally and walk down there.
All right, go ahead, Kyle.
I was complaining to Sean about the lack of decorum in this. I'll raise my hand. To that point, I met with Andy, the executive director at the NIC, this morning actually, and he expressed interest in wanting to be involved in the open container allowances for NIC Fest and stuff. You know, I believe his position was that the NIC would be at a disadvantage not being able to allow alcohol on their premise during an art walk when everyone else is able. So they expressed an interest in wanting to be involved.
Down in that area?
Yes. So
Mm.
again, I don't know if that's something we can make work, or if the parkway, the trail might be a creative way to make that happen. I don't know, but that's the NIC's position. So.
Is that something, Chief, is that something, if we looked at the NIC, how to, I mean, would it be specifically for art walk and
That was their main interest, was art walk.
just art walk
Yep.
down in that area?
Yep.
Have an open container? Go ahead, Chief. Oh.
I just wanted to, when we were setting this up, we were always considering the art walk, always as part of this process, but that was by special permit. They were already accustomed to doing that, so we didn't want to make that part, we're not making the open container area contingent upon the art walk. That's already a project unto itself.
So they could get their permits during that time? Okay.
And can I address this real quick?
Well, hold on one second, which I would say would include the NIC.
Okay.
I would say they're eligible for a permit, so I don't think that's really much of an issue.
Okay. So the NIC would have to apply for a special permit, or the organizers of Art Walk apply for a special permit that covers those
Good
areas?
question.
Do you want to address
Sure.
that?
So the NIC would apply, and they do apply, especially for NIC Fest. They get there, and open container permits there's no charge for those, so.
Okay.
Thanks, Kyle. Steve?
So just to clarify on that though, if Nick gets a open container permit for art walk, it'd be for the Nick building itself. So it's not joining it all together where everybody could just get a drink at the Nick and then just go walking
Right.
downtown.
It would be the NIC and their premises, and then, would
Yeah.
not connect, because it
So-
wasn't going,
Exactly.
not going far enough up.
Okay.
Chief, did you have something?
Mayor, thank you, council. I'm sorry to interrupt. There's some miscommunication when we drew this map up. That section of Midwest that is marked green, that is not the intent of what we're submitting for your approval tonight. And it does not match the resolution that I submitted for your consideration. So that chunk of Midwest should not be on there.
Any questions for the chief on that? Okay.
I'm trying to just get my bearings here. So Ash is the street where you've got Gaslight Social, the office, Urban Bottle, and all of those things.
This is Gaslight, this is David Street Station, the Nolan, and down here would be the office.
Okay,
So
okay.
Rock is
Okay.
in there.
Okay.
I think so.
So this is actually
Yeah.
part of the, there's just no reason to have that continuity there.
Are we still making a distinction between west and east, north and south sides of streets?
The, Mayor, council, I removed most of those, with one exception was when we made it down to, the Backwards Distillery. There was no reason to be across the street from that. It was awkward if it went up to the half part on that, there's no crosswalk, so it didn't make any sense to continue it past that. So that's the only one that remains. The rest of them are not east and west and north south sides of the street.
Okay. Still not that up there. Right. So Carter just pointed out that the recommendation is to close it at 9 instead of 10 o'clock.
Right.
The downtown. Sorry, Chief.
It's-
Carter was just pointing that out to me.
Yeah, no, we got a lot of moving parts on this.
Yeah.
That, we're trying to get the direction of tonight. So.
Steve.
Well, I think my question was answered, because looking off that map there, I know we extended David Street for Blacktooth, and did I hear you correctly that Walcott does extend down for backwards?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Great. Any other questions, comments for Carter or the chief or anything?
Mr. Mayor, one of the other things that we are proposing is with regard to how we designate the area so that people are well aware where they should walk and not walk and so on. Andrew came up with an idea in the interim that I think will make that a lot easier from a staff perspective. And Andrew's picture is wrong on there too, as is the time. Just to be clear.
It matches what you have on your screen.
Do you want to talk through that a little bit, if that's okay, Mr.
Absolutely.
Mayor?
Yep.
Mayor, Council, and I cannot take the accolades. It's really this traffic sign department that came up with this. Rather than rolling out barrels Thursday afternoon and taking them down Monday morning, these will simply go up on existing infrastructure, either existing signs or street lights. We'll put them up before Memorial Day, and they'll stay up throughout the season, and we'll take them down after Labor Day.
Sure.
Just to delineate the boundary. And it does say consumption of personal alcohol prohibited, so they cannot simply grab a beer from their car or whatever they want to drink and then start walking downtown. So
My question is now that we've got the black tooth and then we toured with the True people, that alleyway here, you've got your parking lot here, they're gonna make this alleyway with lights, and so that you can walk to the David Street station and get into Black Tooth. So wouldn't it make sense to just connect this and be done with it? I think they're gonna try to get it done this summer.
Chief.
Because they said that they were going to, actually, no, they said they were going to put bricks through the alleyway, and they're gonna put lights and stuff so that,
More inviting as a.
yeah, so people will start using that alleyway as to traverse from the parking lot that we did, and then easier, well lit to get to David Street Station.
Yeah, I didn't know if anyone was going to respond to Lisa's. In a similar vein, my understanding is that ownership of the lot at the corner of Oak and Yellowstone, where I believe Gaslight was holding outdoor concerts, my understanding is that ownership of that lot has changed, and so I'd be curious if any events are going to occur there. I know Yellowstone has closed, so I'd be curious if anything event-oriented is going to happen west of Ash Street, and if not, we should exclude that zone. That would be my position.
So, and I think if I may, Mr.
So we're
Mayor.
changing your map, and you've made a nice sign.
He's already got to change it.
nothing but a demonstration.
I think you're talking about the alley here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the Goodstein lots are here,
Mm-hmm.
the alley would be there, David Street's here, right?
Yes.
Am I getting that right?
Oh, okay.
And so we may be potentially amending from here and maybe here and adding here, depending on how council wants to go. Just to be clear, this is where the office is, here, Art 321, and, pathway to Nick, so that we have the right orientation going through. So we'll take whatever direction you want to give us.
So Carter, what was the rationale behind moving it to 9 o'clock?
Chief, you want to address that?
Council, the reason why we're recommended, if you remember from our November debrief, It was our observations that it died off completely 100% at 9 o'clock. It was very much tied to the service of restaurants in the area, and we just did not have any business going past 10. So the rationale that I'm presenting to you, it's not being used, and it's costing police overtime to staff it, and it just wasn't getting used.
Any questions? Yeah. Okay.
Would that make, would it be safe to assume then if we explored potentially making it occur earlier on like Saturdays, say noon for instance, would it be safe to assume that would also, the department would have to incur extra costs in that regard? Every hour that we extend it, is it safe to assume it's extra cost to the department to cover?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Steve.
So, I guess the only other question I would add is if it dies off at 9 o'clock to where it's not happening, if we left it at 10, do you have to have your officers out there? I mean, if nobody's out there drinking or there's no issues taking place, then we don't necessarily have to have manpower there. Or people power.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, it's a good question. The problem is they still got to schedule it and staff it, and so, you know, if council wants it till 10, that's council's prerogative. I would prefer that we didn't abandon it based upon the officers' observations. Hey, it's not very active tonight. I think I'm going to go home and catch the NBA game. That doesn't comport well with providing the services that. So if you want 10 o'clock, we can do 10 o'clock. We were just it was an absolute observation consistently all summer long last summer that it just stopped after 9 p.m.
Does council have a prerogative direction on that portion?
What time do the concerts usually end when Gaslight, because Gaslight's got quite the lineup.
Usually 11 or 12, I think. So then the concerts usually end over at Gaslight and stuff. Steve?
Well, some of those this year I think are starting later too, because I know that Pete was coming over to talk to the clerk's office about starting later, especially like during CNFR. He has concerts coming, but he doesn't want to compete with that, and so they get out at 9 o'clock, and so their concert would start at 9:30 or 10. So, and so I guess that's kind of why I bring this up. A lot of those bars don't close, like Blacktooth doesn't close until 10 o'clock, and some of the others don't close till then. And then if they have these concerts and they start at 9:30 or 10, it just kind of makes sense to me to stay at 10.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I guess my personal position is I'd be interested in reaching out to Pete, anyone else. My understanding is that Gaslight is the main purveyor of events on the west side of this district, and so I'd be curious, what they have planned for the summer. Again, I know they were having outdoor concerts over in that old Stock Ups RV lot, but my understanding is that's changed ownership, and so I don't know if there's any expected events going on. And that's the only reason I think we extended that far west originally, was to include that. And so if Gaslight or nobody else plans on having any events over there, I think it's safe to assume that should be off the table. And then now that Yellowstone's garage, we had included Yellowstone Highway between Elm and Ash to include Rock the Block and Yellowstone, but if they're not in operations any longer, I would think that could help the PD with staffing and scheduling and costs if we reduced that coverage by 30% or something like that. So I guess I would want to reach out to event organizers in the area and see what they have planned for this year.
Steve?
And to piggyback on what Kyle's saying, the only thing I would caution on that is just because it switched hands, it's a vacant lot, somebody could still lease that space out, somebody could buy Yellowstone Garage, and I would hate to think that poor Andrew here is going to have to redo these signs every year because we take away or add to that. So
Is he hasn't got it listed or his liquor license for sale, is it? Is it for sale?
So,
He's actively looking to sell it. But he did say something about continuing on with Rock the Block in the meantime, so that's why we did not bring it up.
At
We
the
left it.
previous location?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
good. Okay, so direction on
time, I guess.
I mean, I guess I'm kind of interested too in the, I think probably last year people were still, I don't know how things with COVID were affecting how people were living their lives at that time in the summer, but I mean, if we do have a couple, if we have Blacktooth, I don't know what the expense is, so maybe it would be worth knowing what that hour change actually costs, but I do kind of question if there might be more activity this year also, just with more people knowing and being aware of that they can. I don't know. I share the same curiosity. So
I just think we should leave it.
Okay. Council okay with leaving it to 10?
That part of the sign's good.
I'd also like to make the motion to have at least one day of the week in the month for Andrew to have to hold the sign.
You have to
From that
spin in it.
time.
yeah, the
I
size spinner.
have to be dancing on the corner, spinning something.
And you can have a beer in your hand.
Oh, Lord, Lord, Lord.
Anything else you need on that, Carter?
I think that covers this. Yeah.
I know we're running short on time. WHAM Summer Convention voting delegates. Oh, man.
I'd like to introduce you to Councilmember Pollock.
Sorry.
He
I always
keeps
forget
forgetting
about
him.
House up there, I've just been like by myself, filling up.
Mayor, just for the sake of clarification on this will come in front of us during a future regular council meeting, and then at that point, we are deciding how it's gonna play out over the summer?
Generally, we have a resolution that you pass at the beginning of the season, so to speak. So yeah, you could anticipate a resolution coming forward.
Okay, so it'll come in front of us again for a formal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
That's right.
All right.
Okay. We generally need some indication to WHAM with regard to your direction pertaining to voting delegates, ostensibly among those who are attending the summer convention this summer. The dates of which I can't remember right off the top of my head. Do you remember, Jolene?
No, but I will look quickly and see.
Okay, so
I think it was in the packet.
it should be in your memo. Yeah, that's right. I just don't have that in front of me. If indeed we already know who's going, which that usually is the challenge, is folks aren't always aware of what their summer is looking like at this point in time. We at least need to put the bug in your ear of, for those who may attend, that as those plans materialize and come together, let us know, and then ostensibly, Mr. Mayor, those would be the people that we would want to appoint as a voting delegate.
And that's usually in June, isn't it?
Yeah, usually in June.
Okay.
That's correct.
I was planning on going.
8th through the 10th, thank you.
Okay.
June 8th through the 10th.
And how many do you need for those
Two.
delegates? 2.
Yep.
Okay. So keep that on your radar. Maybe look at your calendars to do that. So,
Thank you.
alrighty.
Appreciate that.
Anything on the agenda review?
Mr. Mayor, just a couple quick things. First of all, while it's not necessarily an agenda item for you tonight, you are going to have the second reading of the Coates Road LAD. We do, however, believe that we need to postpone the third reading of the Coates Road LAD. The date by which, man, I'm having a hard time with dates tonight. When, May 17th, is that right? Okay, May 17th will be that final reading. So just so you have that in the back of your mind, we won't be having the third reading until May 17th, mostly to correct for notifications that slipped through the cracks. So with that, Mr. Mayor, everything else should be pretty on track.
Okay. Awesome. Just a heads up, just a possibility. There's a tree planting on Friday for Arbor Day. Possibility I might need someone. I know I can't. I'm in a meeting. Steve possibly cannot. But if you're interested in doing the proclamation, it would be on Friday, I believe 10 o'clock. I can get you the information. If you're interested in doing that, you could just go. It's at Sagewood Park, and it's a tree planting. I had initially planned on going, but I can't get out of a meeting on Friday.
It's a fun one. It's the little kids. You get to plant a tree. You get to read a really cool proclamation, and
Really cool.
so
I could probably do it.
you want to?
Yeah,
Okay.
I-
You want to talk after
I'll
the meeting?
double check, but-
Okay. Cool. And I'll get you the right times and everything.
Okay, as long as you write a good proclamation. Sounds silly.
Best.
All right. Don't make me
She can't, I
Thank
can.
you.
I don't write them.
Yeah.
Like you.
You're running a little behind. Thank you for your patience. We'll go ahead and get started. I think we have everybody here. All right, before we begin tonight, I'd like to remind everyone to please silence your cell phones. And I now call the April 19th, 2022 regular council meeting to order. The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, excuse the absence of Council Member Kathy and Council Member Nell.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Ingebretson. Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. Just a note, council meetings are televised and can be viewed on cable channel 192. I haven't done this for quite a while, but can I have you do the Pledge of Allegiance? Lead us. If you just come up here. Right over here, just to the end. Please stand. Whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I believe you're a member of the Casper Youth Council, so thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the April 5th, 2022 regular council meeting as published in the Casper Star Tribune on April 17th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Egebretson, seconded by Vice Mayor Friel. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. Chair to entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the April 5th, 2022 executive session.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Gamroth, seconded by Councilmember Pollock. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the April 19th, 2022 bills and claims as audited by City Manager Napier.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Gamroth, seconded by Vice Mayor Friel. Any abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
There's a, you can abstain from that conflict claim, which is next.
Any abstentions or nay votes? Oh, okay. Please record the vote. I'm sorry. My bad. I got thrown off.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
I apologize. I thought you were trying to abstain. My apologies.
I'm abstaining the next time.
Gotcha. Chair to entertain a motion to approve by minute action the April 19th, 2022 conflict claim as audited by City Manager Napier.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Friel, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Any abstentions or nay votes?
I will be abstaining.
Any other abstentions or any nay votes? Okay. Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Ingebrigtsen's abstention noted, the motion passes.
Thank you. We now turn to bright spots in our community, recognizing National Public Health Week. We are pleased to welcome representatives from the Casper-Natrona County Health Department here tonight, and we would like to introduce Anna Kinder to say a few words. Is Anna here? Oh, there she is. Hi, Anna.
Thank you very much for recognizing National Public Health Week. We're celebrating it this week due to the fact that many of us were gone training for emergency preparedness. Thank you for your past support, our present work that we're doing, and obviously what work we'll plan to do in the future. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Anna. Any comments or questions for Anna? No? Okay. So Anna, I'm going to have you hold right there. I'm going to read the proclamation from this microphone, and then I'll have you come up and get it, okay? All right. Whereas the Casper-Natrona County Health Department was established in 1954 as a vote in the polls of November to be established to meet the needs of the citizens of Casper and Natrona County, starting with environmental health and good community sanitation. And whereas the Health Department has continued to lead the way in providing care to the community through their different programs. COVID-19 testing, vaccination and treatment, the Disease Prevention Clinic through treatment and communicable diseases and immunizations, serving needs from pregnancy to end of life through the maternal and child health and adult health programs, health education on a variety of subjects, and whereas other important services they provide include emergency preparedness support, safety and inspection, services in the places of our community lives, such as daycares, CPR and first aid, and dealing with restaurants alone to inspect yearly, having an impact on the people who reside here as well as those that visit in the community. And whereas serving over 35,000 citizens, client visits, educational contacts, and inspections this year to date with the various programs, the health department is always looking for opportunities to provide services that are needed. And whereas the Casper and Natrona Health Department has made many outstanding contributions during the last 68 years that have helped our community and continue to prevent disease, promote health, and protect our citizens. Now, therefore, I, Ray Pacheco, the mayor of the city of Casper, do hereby proclaim the week of April 18th to the 22nd, 2022 as the Casper and Natrona County Health Department Week. And I ask that everyone recognize and celebrate the achievements of this remarkable department. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of Casper to be affixed this 19th day, April 2022. Come on up here, Anna. Now is the time that we invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak with the council to come forward. As stated on the first page of the agenda, we do ask the following. We ask that you please state your name and address, direct all comments to me, the mayor. No personal attacks on staff or council will be tolerated. Council will not respond to personnel matters, and those will all be referred to our city manager. Questions posed by speakers may or may not be responded to by council. Presentations will be limited to 5 minutes, and the duplication of speakers will not be allowed, nor will there be no time extensions. Please note that public hearings and ordinances each have their own comment period, so please hold your comments for those items until we reach them. So, whoever wants to be first.
Hello.
Hello.
Cody Hill. I'm with WHAM Central Bait. So I, Cody Hill, as the Vice President of WHAM Central Bait, an organization that is built on a brotherhood against totalitarianism enactments, speak for and stand behind every member that helps every run, every heartfelt moment that is brought to our attention, every governing body that tries to pass laws without people understanding what is actually being passed. We stand for people who, when there is no light in sight. This committee has been passed with an 8-0 vote against the people of this community. We have all rights to stand and speak our voices for you to understand as we are, not just as bikers or of any organization, but people that bring life to your Casper community. We are trying to open the egos of not only motorized vehicles, but churches, funeral services, veteran parades, Christmas parades, or any other parades that bring this fine community together as one. But for the people to know we have a parade of our own, which is the parade for the biker awareness. As a bait members, to be cleared as we ride through the streets of this state, not just in town, but down the highways and in other counties in our beloved state of Wyoming. I believe it is a contradiction to the committee and the town of Casper to bring on more officers just knowing that we are going to be here. Who is paying for this overtime? Come on, what's that? This run has been going on long before I was even ever born. And the voices and the hard ground that has been broken to bury loved ones, and that is being brought up to the attention by this run for more than over 40 years. This protect and serve money-hungry game that is being played has forgotten what life truly means. We want to fight over all the we want to fight over the mighty dollar for a cause that is more than the air that we breathe, because as it stands, we never know which one will be our last. It is very unfair, in my opinion. We as the people stand, as they are right behind me, to state that we are okay with the funds that need to be covered because services do need to be covered. We respect that 100% as the citizens of these fine communities. But to shut in services that we as the people already pay for, it is crazy. If the committee wants to start to charge the insurance and the overtime for the extra services for the fine cops of the Casper CPD, why, if this stands, don't we all get together at the beginning of the year and have a committee meeting to where we, by chance, don't go through and fund this event? We as a Bay care deeply for this fine community. As a nonprofit, we always do help. Hold on, paper's sticking together. That's all I have.
Good. Thank you. What's up, mileage?
Good to see you. First off, I'd like to say something about our councilman that got in the plane crash, and wish him the well. We've emailed him and let him know that he's respected as far as we go.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
You know how I am with words.
You're a poet, Mike.
The two of us, if we could get to 10 minutes, that would be wonderful.
So the two of you are going to speak?
My name's Russ Reddick, 2703 Katy Hawk, Casper, Wyoming. Mileage has a speech disability, and he's asked me to speak for him.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
He starts his speech with training. What kind of training is required to block traffic for a few minutes, and can anyone do it? Why do we have to pay our officials to do something almost everyone can do? I personally don't believe all the avenues to some of the problems have yet been exhausted. Sometimes money is more harmful to solving a problem than helpful. Personally, I'd be willing to go through a training course to help out situations like these, under the city's supervision if necessary, preferably of no charge. Personally, ABATE used to help out with the Windy City Strides in just that way, with the 5K run before the County Fair and Rodeo in Casper. We were asked, and the only question we had was, how can we help? Which we did for 3 or 4 years. It's not only ABATE, but every motorcycle organization, club, and a lot of motorcycle enthusiasts in Central Wyoming that have donated their time, effort, and finances to help out the Casper community at one time or another. All riders are represented, not just 1 or 2 organizations, and they all show support for any worthwhile cause. All these clubs, organizations, and lone riders help the community in numerous ways through large raffles, poker runs, or just one-on-one situations. Some examples are sickness, food, money to sick children to get their parents to Denver to help them with child problems, Christmas, Thanksgiving donations. We used to be largest contributor to Make-A-Wish in Wyoming, the Boys and Girls Club, Special Olympics, Jason's Friends, Wounded Vets, Suicide Preventions, Helping the Elderly, Kids' School Lunches, and on and on and on. These are not things that are not only important to us, but to the welfare of the Casper community as a whole. We're just a little guy trying to make a difference. The Casper city government is a multi-million-dollar business, yet we're just all volunteers. Our rewards are through self-satisfaction. Maybe, possibly, it wouldn't be such a big loss to the Casper city to express their gratitude once or twice a year for the Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Parade and the Toy Run, like they've always done in the past. The Casper Police Department in 1982 was one of the original founders of the Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Parade. In fact, the very first parade started right at this building. For the last 4 years and counting, we've had major problems getting help from the Casper Police Department, to the point of having to go to Carter or the City Council on several occasions. We've heard excuses such as we don't have the patrolmen, the coronavirus, cops have quit, and on and on. Now there seems to be a need that we pay for this privilege, for doing their elected jobs, doing the jobs they were hired for. I no longer believe that they could say that there's a shortage of officers. In fact, we believe there's way too many. We went from a shortage to an abundance of Casper police. In fact, records shown sworn Casper police officers has risen to 96 sworn officers. There's a total of 732 city employees, and now they're asking for money for us to do a job they've already been paid for, to protect and to serve this community. I feel that any time we can spend an hour or two to save a life is well worth it, and so should the Casper Police Department. Safety first used to mean something. It seems we're coming up against new requirements every time we turn around, and I'm sure it's not only the motorcyclists, but a lot of different groups that are trying to help by donating their time, effort, and money to make this community better for us all. It seems like they're coming up, examples. At the start, the only thing wrong with our parade is it needed to be shorter.
25 seconds.
By
25 seconds.
By 2/3. The next thing, we're not to wear patches. We won't do that. Police wear their patches, and so will we. Since the routes have changed, we've had to deal with changes in permit paperwork. 90% of the changes have nothing to do with it. But when we question them, we're told it's the way it is, and we must accept the changes. It's ridiculous. It seems we've tried to follow instructions laid out to us, even to the point of liability insurance for all officers, as if they're not already insured while they're on the job. The governor of our state gives no charge to apparently he thinks motorcycle safety is very important in this community, as he sponsors the Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Month every year.
So I'll have to stop you there, since I don't do extensions, but thank you for understanding. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
And we hope you take our
Thank
notes
you.
into consideration.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Starting to deal with changes.
Right.
State your name and
My name is Sherry Vigil. I live at 44 South Kaufman Avenue, and I am a motorcycle enthusiast. And so after everything seemed to be good to go, he get back with me and told me the only other stipulation would be that we need to pay for the use of the officer's support. We then started having to deal with changes in the permit paperwork, which 98% of the new change has nothing to do with us. We questioned it on, that's just the way it is. You must accept changes. It's changed several times over the last few years, and I was so confusing, I don't even believe they knew what was going on. After 4 years of working on this problem, they came up with a suitable solution. How many hours were wasted in those 4 years when this very simple permit, one-on-one basis, was already being used? No matter how ridiculous it seems, we tried to follow the instructions that was laid out for us, even to the point of getting liability insurance for all officers involved, as they are not already insured on the job. If the governor of our state gives a thumbs up at no charge, apparently he thinks that he's thinking that of the motorcycle safety is just as important as life in Wyoming. Casper has not. Then we were told that we need to take off all patches of any kind. Sorry, I'm repeating where you read. During a parade. This request we do not follow. We notice officers still wearing their patches. This is still Wyoming in the US of A. To sum up, there are times that I'm very happy and thankful that I live in Casper, Wyoming. And there are other times, those times all have to do with the city government. I no longer have the pride that I should have about my great city of Casper, Wyoming. Is that the end of it, Mike? And I just want to speak because I took the motorcycle safety class, and I think it's very important that we have this parade to make people aware that are on their phones texting. We're out there, it's riding season. We do it because we love it. My brother was killed on Easter morn because a person wasn't paying attention to him on the road. My friend died 3 weeks ago because someone was not paying attention to her on the road. And we do, the bikers of all likes, kinds, clubs or not, we do always give to our community. Your child has cancer, your mom died, they can't pay for the funeral, we're there. We feed the hungry, the poor, the rich, no matter what. We always try to benefit our community while yet still having fun, because that's why we do it. But I think as well as Mike, it's kind of crazy that we have to pay extra money for something we're already paying for, because I work 3 jobs and I pay my taxes. So I think, you know, of course we got to pay for permits or whatever, but to raise the prices of them is kind of crazy. We do escort funerals for free. I mean, like, I just believe that, I'm an emotional kind of gal. So that our Casper PD, or we could take flagging courses because they give flagging courses. We can take those and be our own flaggers, which we do many times in parades and poker runs and anything. So as city council members here, which I respect my government very much, but I think that our government is for the people and not for themselves, and for our city. Because, you know, there's potholes all over our city streets that if one of our front tires hits it, it can send us sailing and we'll lose our life, you know. Dirt on the ground, you know, when they put the pea gravel out to ice, you know, do we pay for that sweeper to clean our streets off? You know, people raking blowing their leaves in the street. That's a huge danger to all of us riders, no matter if it's on 2 wheels, 4 wheels, 3 wheels. We all still live in the same community and we all pay the same taxes. And like I said, I hope and I pray to God that I never lose my life doing what I love. But we need to make people aware we're there. Even playing, instead of slug bug, slug the motorcycle. Teach your children to look out for us riders. You know, that we're out there. And, you know, maybe the text messaging, we need a bit, like, be harsher on that stuff, because there's so many times, even in my car I drive, I see people down. They don't even see me coming, you know. So I just ask the city council members to please reanalyze what you are imposing on all of us. And maybe someday you might have a grandchild, a son, a daughter, somebody who rides, and that you will take this into consideration, because they are all a part of our community. And we have the best state in the world.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike.
Good evening.
Hello.
My name's Mike Pyatt. My address, 3841 East 15th. I appreciate Mayor Pacheco and the council to get to speak tonight. I'll reference 918 East 2nd Street in our fine city. June 1, approximately, there'll be a new abortion provider coming. And so I've got some comments and then a couple questions. They've characterized this city as a desert because there aren't enough abortion clinics around. I represent Liberty's Place for You. It's a group. We advance liberty. That's our passion and purpose. And we find it quite difficult to think about advancing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. With abortion, there is no life. You can't pursue anything. So we're opposed to the clinic. I talked with the CEO and founder last week, Julie Burkhart. I expressed to her our concern. We did say, for the majority of the people in Casper, you are not welcome here, and that we will protest. There'll be a protest this Thursday, the 21st, outside their property. So I wanted to make sure that people knew the clinic was coming. And one phone's not enough. My wife handed me hers. And let's see, 0222. I do better with a grocery list. At least I can read it. But there was a little meme that said, with abortion, there's 2 less eyes, 2 less arms, 2 less feet, and you all know that. So, my opposition to abortion is long-standing, and I would like to know, Mayor Pacheco and the council, how much you know about this organization, and will it also be subject to the same scrutiny if another organization, and they will provide, in their own words, medical abortions. So I want to know, will they be under scrutiny like another organization would that provides medical procedures?
So Mike, when you say under scrutiny,
whatever ordinance.
You're talking about like ordinances and laws and things like
You have a
that.
restaurant, you have to, the health department checks it. So I'm asking, this is an organization that provides medical procedures. Will they be under the same scrutiny?
In a minute, I'm going to refer back to our attorney. I would imagine, I don't want to say I imagine, they would have to follow the letter of the law according and to the basis of all of our ordinances in that regard. Now, I would probably have to turn to our city attorney for anything specific in regards to that, and I don't even know what that looks like or if there's something in that regard, as we would have something coming in based upon medicine of some type.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Council. Thank you, Mr. Pyatt.
Yes.
In response to your thoughts, really the city of Casper doesn't have the authority to regulate healthcare providers in how they practice medicine. That's really a question for the Board of Medicine, and if there were something that would be violative of an ordinance, they weren't doing this or that right, then they would be subject to those ordinances. But we are pretty limited in Casper as to what we can do. We get our power from the state. We have this long list of things that our 9 council members can do. It's Wyoming Statute 15-1-103, and it's 7 or 8 pages long with separate bullet point paragraphs of what they are authorized to regulate or not, things that they can do, buildings they can own, streets that they can pave. It's pretty detailed and it's pretty broad, but regulating medical providers isn't one of those.
And who does provide that for this oversight for the city?
Not for the city, we don't have that authority. That would be a state thing, and like I say, the Board of Medicine is often called upon to do that, and that is authorized by the state government.
I know I've gone over my time, but part of that went to the lawyer.
No,
What?
100%.
So, but I just like to make my opposition that I think the majority, and when you see as the protests progress, you'll see the majority of the people oppose abortion and killing babies. And so I just want to make sure that you're all aware it's coming. And I think people of a conscience, hopefully, Mayor Pacheco will speak out. So
great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming up, Mike. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Sharon Kemp, and I represent the Glen Rock Giving Tree. And ABATE has been with me for 44 years this year, and I've been doing it for 47. And what we do is we give gifts to disadvantaged children. If they have to pay for insurance for this bike run that they were going to do was going to raise money for the kids that have no school lunches in the summer. And if we have to pay for an exorbitant insurance, it's going to cut in what they can give. And we really hope they don't do that. They've helped a hospice in this community. They help the animal shelters. They're the biggest contributor to organizations in this state. And they do these runs to raise money to help these organizations. If they have to pay $13 million for off-duty officer insurance, they can't afford to do the runs. We can't afford to raise the money. So if there's a grant that the city could help us with, or some way that we could get some help to pay the insurance, we would certainly appreciate it, because it's exorbitant. It's exorbitant, the amount of money that we would have to pay. And you can't make any money on a run if you've got to pay all that. And this run, every biker donates money to make sure those kids are fed during the summer. This year, we did 175 kids in Glen Rock, and now that's Glen Rock, but can't tell you about the 2 truckloads of stuff we brought to the church here in Casper. It isn't just Glen Rock kids. They help Douglas kids. They help Casper kids. And it's very important that they can have these runs to help raise gifts and toys and money. The insurance needs to, we just need a grant or whatever to pay for that insurance. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming up. Appreciate it. Any others who wish to speak?
Hi, I'm Brenda Sanders. I live in Bar None. Many of you already know me because I've come up here and spoken before. And I'm not trying to sound redundant or anything, but I belong to Guardians of the Children, which protects our children in Natrona County. I also belong to the Patriot Guard Riders, who escort funerals. And I'm also a proud member of ABATE, because they stand up for our rights. First of all, I went through the Special Events Planning Guide that hasn't been updated yet with this new resolution you guys passed 2 weeks ago. So we have no clue how much this insurance is supposed to cost or how much this overtime thing is going to cost. We're hearing all kinds of numbers. I checked around in other communities in the state of Wyoming, and their parade permit is $15, that's it. And they get full escorts with no additional cost. This is going to affect not just the parade run. It's going to affect our veterans when we do our flag lines and our escorts. It's going to affect Guardians of the Children when we do our rides. I'm just asking you, like Sharon said, if there's some kind of a grant, or if somebody can give us some answers as to how much this is supposed to cost, then like Mileage said, we could start planning this in January and not 2 weeks before the ride. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Brenda. Appreciate it.
I'm Connie Richardson. I live at 2450 Ellison. I just wanted you to know what the awareness parade means to me. Did you know 5,000 motorcyclists died in 2019 because people don't pay attention to what is happening on the roads? In Casper, this parade just makes people aware. They sit on 2nd Street and watch the parade and cheer people along. It's not about that. I'm sure you can find some volunteers in the Casper Police Department that would be volunteer to come out and spend their time, that we wouldn't have to pay the overtime, or ABATE wouldn't have to pay the overtime. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
My name is KJ Bigford, 242 North 8th, Glen Rock. I feel pretty strongly about this myself. Does everybody on the panel know the definition of extortion? That's kind of what every single person in this room feels like what's happening to us right now. We feel like we're being forced to pay money that we've never had to pay in the last 40 years of doing this parade. And everybody, pretty much everybody else has hit the big points, how much we try to help, how much we do for the community, everything like that. And every dime that y'all take away from us is taken away from the children. And that's all I had to say.
Thank you. So I would be dismissive if I didn't address and have some conversation, since so many of you came out tonight, and I don't want it to not be that way. First and foremost, I've been on council for almost 8 years, and I've come out as mayor, do proclamations and speak. I think Steve's been out there. What I want to make very clear is that we do appreciate what ABATE does. We do appreciate all the work that you do. My uncle just passed away, and he's a veteran, and you were there. So I don't want anybody to ever think that we are being dismissive of you, because you have to understand that we do know what you do for this community, okay? So I want to make sure that that's very, very clear. I've had many of you in here, and Sean will probably remember this, when we were doing the noise ordinance, and we were in here and we had a good conversation, and that changed very quickly, if you remember. But we had that conversation because we talked about it. So I want you to know that the work you do is not unrecognized. And I think the respect that we hold for you is deep, and we appreciate you coming here because it is a community. And it's a very tight-knit community. I know many of you. I've known you for many years. And so we understand that. And I know when you get a situation like this, it can be very frustrating trying to get the right answers and being able to do that. We want you to have your parade. We support the parade, and we want that to happen because it is an important parade. You're absolutely right. There are people, we've all known people that have died on motorcycle accidents. We've had friends that have done that. We've family members, we know that. So we want to make sure that we're all on the same page to be able to work together. The council and ABATE has had a long history of working together for a lot of years. So what I first want to say is that we still want to be able to continue to do that and being able to work together. Now, as far as the fee, from my understanding, I can be corrected if I'm wrong, is an overtime pay for the police officers. Now, what my understanding of it is, and I can have our city manager also talk here in a second, is that everybody that does any type of a parade, and you guys is a big parade because I've been there. I've seen it. It's a big parade, and it's awesome. And so we have to have police there, and everybody that does a parade has to have that, and they have to pay for the overtime for the police. It's not something that's new within, I mean, as far as I know, it's been here for a while, as far as paying for the overtime. Now, is it an exorbitant amount of money? From my understanding for that, I think it's $400 for the overtime pay for the police officers for that day, in order just to pay for the overtime pay. As you all know, everything costs money, everything takes a little bit of everything, and it's a give and take. So how do we work on that? How do we do that? That's what I understand. That's how it's been told to me. Carter, I don't know if I want to maybe hand it off to you as far as city policy and so forth, and the city clerk and so forth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and to all of our guests this evening. The issue really boils down to two matters as it relates to the parade permit that's being discussed tonight. And I think we have a copy of it kind of floating around if you haven't gotten it on this end. Okay, good. All right. The basic idea is with regard to the permit, it does discuss what it is that would be needed in the form of support, and generally speaking, police services is really what's needed in that support, because what that involves is shutting down intersections so that the motorcycle parade can pass through without having to observe the lighting and the traffic regulation and all that, and get through expeditiously so that the rest of traffic can continue and the chance for accidents or injury or whatever is minimized. The other part of it is with respect to the insurance requirement, which isn't meant to insure the police officers, but rather insure the participants that are in the parade in the extent that there is some major accident and the city and or the participants are brought into some sort of litigation or accident recovery or whatever the case may be. And so what I would suggest, Mr. Mayor, is that indeed the $400 is probably more in line with respect to the cost of that event coverage from an insurance standpoint, and that with regard to the overtime that would be required and probably necessary for the to conduct the parade throughout the extent of the route is probably more along the lines of a couple $1,000.
So the overtime would be a couple thousand, and the insurance permit 400.
More along the lines of 400, that's right.
Okay.
Now, we had one of our participants tonight speak to grant possibilities. And the reality is there is a grant program that's available for this kind of thing. As a matter of fact, council recently talked about this program, which is very typical for this time of year, in the form of the Community Promotions Program. And all of you will recall what that is, although our participants may not be aware of that program being in existence. The conversation that I've had with Mike over the years is more along the lines of how we can get this event on that grant cycle so that every time they are applying to the granting group, the Community Promotions Committee, if you will, versus directly to the City Council, so that that program can kind of get into the process of participating from a funding standpoint that council helps fuel with other funds and so on to help events just like this one, of which this group does 2 parades in 1 year, just to be real clear. It's in May and September, I believe. Most other events only do 1 parade a year, like the Christmas parade, for example, and so on. So to cut to the chase, Mr. Mayor, I think what's being requested this evening is the fact that this program is outside of that grant cycle right now. And so they are appealing to this group, to all of you, to see if you'd be willing to fund some of the in-kind requests that would be necessary to support the parade program in May. My suggestion would be that this organization, the Abate organization, also apply to the Community Promotions Committee so that indeed for September and then next May, their events would be covered through that program. Okay. So right now we're kind of off cycle with the appropriate application. September and then next May would be on cycle. And then from here on out, those 2 runs would be covered through that program if, of course, the committee approved it. And that is obviously a application process that they would need to engage in.
So what it sounds like to me, and this is the council, that this year we would look at trying to somehow subsidize this year's, since they're out of the grant cycle for the community promotions.
For the May run.
For the May run, but the council could possibly absorb some of that, if not all of it, if we wanted to, for the police.
And that, I think, is the heart of the request, the dollars needed to fund the overtime for the police assistance for the May parade.
Okay. Council. Yeah, please, Councilmember Ingebretson, sorry.
I'm all for approving funding for covering this event for May, contingent on the fact that somebody in this group takes a hold of this grant and fills out the paperwork. We've got to get this paperwork. We talked about this last year. Nobody's done it. We've got to get this paperwork in because we have proper channels to do this. And so if we can get you guys to do the paperwork, then we don't have to keep doing this every year.
Any others? Councilmember Pollack.
I do just want to add, different than our conversation last year, we have changed that program to some extent. We have now partnered up with Visit Casper to do it, so the process is going to be a bit different. The timing is going to be about the same. Those applications are going to open, I believe, in May, and then that will essentially go into effect for events from July through next July. So the timing is, as Carter said, we're off cycle here, but that's going to look a little different than it has years in the past. And the past years, it's just been council who has reviewed those requests. This is now sort of a joint collaborative effort with Visit Casper. So it'll be a couple council folks. I believe it will be me and Kyle who are representing the council on that, with that group, and then a couple people from the Visit Casper board who will be representing that. So I did want to draw a distinction. That process is going to work a little different, it's going to look a little different, and so I think the earlier we can start talking about that with y'all, the better, because we're going to be working through a brand new process for this year.
And if I can make a recommendation from the abate group, if you could have one point person reach out to, I would have them reach out to Councilmember Pollock or Councilmember Gamroth, especially for that grant, would be great.
So as that is, we'll appoint Brenda as our primary contact.
Okay.
And if we can just know who we need to speak with, whether it be Pollock or whoever we need
Gamroth,
to speak with, and you two, we will absolutely jump through the hoops that we need to get the grants programs going, because as you guys have spoken, I mean, we know what the parade does. We know the awareness that it's brought out, and we want to work with you guys just as much as vice versa. So yeah, absolutely. Pollock and Gamroth, we'll work with you. Brenda will be your primary contact, and anything we can do and help with, that's what we're all about. Always have been.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it. Councilmember Gamroth.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to concur with some of the earlier comments you made about, acknowledging the great work that you guys and other clubs in the town do. I've personally benefited from, Patriot Guard and other folks attending funeral processions in my family. I've helped the Vietnam vet, Legacy Vet Motorcycle Club with their biker ball for the past several years, and I don't know a more generous group of people. A loving bunch. So I haven't had the opportunity to make it to any abate events, but I imagine they're in a similar vein, full of generous people doing good work for the community. So thank you for the work, and thank you for showing up to a meeting. We typically are speaking to an empty room, so it's actually awesome to see so many folks engaging in the process and coming out to voice their opinion, so I appreciate it. I guess my question is more for city staff. The need for police officers to help police that route. Could you please remind me, is that dictated by ordinance, by statute? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I'd be happy to address that. For those of you who may not be familiar with the context of the route for this particular parade, it extends basically from East Side Walmart all the way through the old Yellowstone district to Poplar, and then they turn down Poplar and go down first up towards Butch's and Evansville. Is the route that Mike and I have talked about to some extent. Certainly over the years there's been different variations, but that's generally the spine of the route. The challenge that we face with regard to that route is we pass through major intersections as a part of it. The downtown, of course, is one of those, which of course has a number of intersections. And 2nd Street at Wyoming Boulevard is obviously one of the biggest intersections that we deal with in this route, and probably one of the most busy intersections throughout the state of Wyoming. And so
busiest, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very busy. So it's helpful for these folks in order to continue through the route in an appropriate pace, to have the intersection shut down as they approach, so they can approach through the intersection without having to stop, and then their, parade participants get separated and other cars get in between and all those kinds of things. So the primary responsibility of our folks that help in this is to control those intersections so the parade can continue undeterred and not have other cars getting in between to the extent possible throughout the entire route. So that really is the role of our PD. I call it a rolling blockade, if you will, for lack of a better way to describe it. And then of course, it helps facilitate the extent of the participants, which can be pretty lengthy, as you are probably aware. So,
go ahead.
Thank you, Carter. Thank you, Mayor. As a follow-up, could you please elaborate on what sort of implications are there to the city? Somebody mentioned having members of their club do the flagging. This is probably a question for the city attorney. What sort of implication does that have for the city if we were to allow volunteers to flag, to provide these blockades? That's my question. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Council Mayor. The question about insurance, it kind of pairs with that. The real question about this liability insurance that we ask parade participants and parade organizers to get is that if there is some type of really bad crash, accident, some crazy who just decides they can't stand this anymore, or somebody's tired of waiting for the blockade and they just pile into a bunch of motorcycles, that there would be some type of insurance potentially to protect those who were injured. Here, there would be another potential liability for the people within the club itself, and that would be if someone did, lose attention, didn't flag properly, or if someone decided to go after that flagger because, by golly, I've sat here for 2.5 minutes or something like that as people pass by. So, on first blush, my recommendation would be, say, that's probably not something we would want them to do as a routine. There may be areas in town where people can do that, and if there was some routine about it, it might be possible. Certainly with school zones, we have lay people who are paid by the school district who are out there, who are employees and who are trained to do it, but they're out there every day at the same time, and so drivers become accustomed to that, and there isn't that long wait where people get upset. So there's potential liability there for the city, possibly, but I think really more for the club and more for the people who are actually acting as the volunteers than it would be for the city.
Mr. Mayor, I would also add, Councilman, the police department has particular authorities to control intersections within the state of Wyoming that you and I don't have the authority to do. And so not only would the appropriate training be necessary and those kinds of things, and particularly when it comes to dealing with angry motorists and whatnot, the police department has an authority vested in them to take control of intersections that citizens like myself would not enjoy. And so there's that as well.
Yeah. Councilmember Pollock.
We just have one other detail that I wanted to bring up. In the way that we've also switched this process, the city is now focused on our in-kind contribution side of things rather than any sort of cash contributions in terms of like grant funding. So when we're thinking about this, the city would be looking at helping with the expenses of services that we can provide, not so much on the insurance side. And so for future planning, that like covering insurance will likely not be part of the program going forward. It would be focused on things like helping with police costs, trash, any of the things that the services that the city is routinely providing as it is, doing those at some sort of discounted rate or subsidized rate. So that may look a little different depending on what Visit Casper wants to bring to the table, but from the city standpoint, we have agreed that it will be in-kind services that will be focused on.
So, as I know you probably all have things to get back to and families and so forth and dinner, I guess I would make a proposal on that same line of a conversation of Councilmember Pollock. So normally with community promotions, we do a 50% of in-kind. My proposal would be we do a 50% in-kind for May for police services, and then they would pay for the insurance. And we would just do the 50% in kind, and I don't know what that would come out to be, but I don't think it would be super expensive. I don't know. Thoughts, Carter?
Mr. Mayor, I would suspect that with regard to the total contribution for in-kind, we would not be talking about a bill that would exceed $1,000, and so. It's a pretty minimal cost if indeed council is comfortable with that as a working number.
So you're saying even the full, not the 50%?
Mostly because we're off cycle anyway, and we're kind of anticipating supporting a program that, we're not trying to push through community promotions right now. Okay. Hopefully the next runs will be, right, September and next May. But for now, since we're only talking maybe $1,000, it may be more trouble than it's worth to worry about a $500 bill as much as a $1,000 bill for the city.
So
just a thought.
I just guess I'd throw that on the table real quick, council, and so we can get these good people home to their families and so forth. basically, the concept would be is we would do the full 100% in kind for the PD, so they wouldn't have to do that this year. With the contingent plan that we do have Brenda as the point person who we will get in contact with Councilmember Pollock and Councilmember Gamroth to get that set up. So we have that conversation and can get you guys on the road to that community promotions that we've established. Council? Okay, seeing head shaking. So here's the deal. We will do that, and this year want to make sure that we are working with you. We do appreciate working with you guys, and we want to make sure that that's taken care of this year. Vice Mayor, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Are you sure? Okay. All right. And I think, Mileage, you know I'm coming out to do the proclamation for this year, so I'll be out there.
Mr. Mayor, if I could have a moment of your time. So we had spoke with a couple of the CPD. They actually came out to one of our meetings out at the Horseshoe, and we know that WHAM Boulevard and 2nd Street is a huge mayhem. We know that. So us as a bait had already communicated amongst ourselves as officers, and we came upon the agreements that where the church is there, the Hobby Lobby, our run would start there and eliminate the WHAM Boulevard and 2nd Street, so that was completely out of the way.
Perfect, yep.
That you guys know, and you guys can put that into your notes.
Great, appreciate it, thank you. So, anything else? Go ahead.
No, I just want to add, I appreciate everybody coming down here and talking about this, and this is obviously the way we take care of things, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys take into account that intersection, because that has been for years, and I go way back with you guys as far as this parade goes, and that has always been a problem, so I appreciate that. The one thing that, my only hesitancy to this whole thing is by doing this, we kick the door open for other people to come in here and do exactly what you're asking us to do for you tonight. So I really ask that you make sure that you get with these guys and go get grant funding. We've talked about it over the years. You have to do that, because if you come back up here next year, it probably won't happen. I mean, this is one of those things where you need to take it, you need to take the torch and run with it, and there's funding out there, make it happen that way. Because I'm really kind of against opening a door up, because then I get everybody coming through that door and saying, well, you give it to the abate, why not give it to us? So show them that the proper way of doing it is go out, get the grants, get the money in place that's out there for you. Just do the legwork on it, you'll be good to go. But I'm all in favor of the way we resolve this tonight.
All right, thank you guys all for coming. I appreciate your being here and speaking. I appreciate it. Thank you guys. Thank you. We'll go ahead and take about a 5-minute break real quick as everybody exits. We'll just take a couple minutes. now. All right. Let's rock and roll. Here we go. Please read the consent agenda titles.
Establish May 3rd, 2022 as the public hearing date for the following 2 items. Item 8A1, new microbrewery liquor license number 10 for Bullhorn Brewing LLC, doing business as Bullhorn Brewing, located at 2027 East Yellowstone Unit B. Item 8A1B, transfer of retail liquor license number 30 from Gold Crown LLC, doing business as Paradise Valley Liquors, located at 401 Valley Drive, to Half Barrel Incorporated, doing business as Paradise Valley Liquors, located at 401 Valley Drive.
Chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, establish the public hearing dates just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Any abstentions or nay votes? Councilmember Pollock abstaining. Any others? Nay votes? Okay. Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Pollock's abstention noted and all other council members voting aye, the motion passes.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the microbrewery license number 4 for Frontier Brewing Company. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
We have 4 exhibits tonight, Mayor, Council. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Fleur Trumbull to J. Carter Napier, dated March 17, 2022. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated April 18, 2022. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication, is published on the City of Casper website, dated April 13, 2022. And exhibit number 4, liquor license application, filed March 4, 2022.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is basically a relocation of an existing license to a new location. The new location that you're probably aware of is the old Fox Theater building that Frontier Brewing would be doing their business out of. And so pursuant to that, it's appropriate to reassign ostensibly a new license.
Thank you. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the new microbrewery license number 4, Frontier Brewing Company, to please approach the lectern. Okay, at this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the microbrewery license number 4, Frontier Brewing Company, to please approach the lectern. There being no one to speak for or against the microbrewery license number 4, Frontier Brewing Company, I now declare the public hearing closed. Chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize the new microbrewery license number 4.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Discussion. Yes, Councilmember.
It just needs to be a clarification. They already have a liquor license. They're simply moving the location. So it's not anything different than a different location.
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it. Any others? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Pollock's abstention noted and all other council members voting aye, the motion passes.
Please read the ordinance on second reading by, oh, hold on 1 second. Man, I keep forgetting poor Councilmember Pollock. I did this in our leadership meeting too. I'm so sorry. I do like you. Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance ratifying all actions previously taken concerning City of Casper, Wyoming, Local Assessment District Number 158, confirming the proceedings, assessment roll, and assessment therefore, assessing the amounts in said roll on the property in said district, creating a lien therefore and prescribing the priority therefore, directing the certification of said roll by the city clerk and transmittal thereof to the city treasurer, prescribing notice that said assessment shall be paid and the terms thereof, providing for the payment of said assessment, creating a special and a separate fund therefore, providing for the collection of delinquent assessments, and prescribing various details concerning said provisions.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Sutherland, seconded by Vice Mayor Friel. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers are allowed.
Good evening.
How's it going?
Good.
Mr. Mayor, my name's Seth Corson, and I live at 4270 Coates Road. So that's one of the properties included in this assessment for the improvements. I did write a letter specifically to all you guys, if you had a chance to read it. That kind of speaks to some of the details from my concern. After watching the council last council meeting and listening to Suzanne Goley's concerns, I kind of took a second look at it and agreed with her thoughts. So my thought there is, you know, she's one of, I believe there's only 4 or 5 large property owners that are really negatively impacted by the allocation for how it is. So that being her speaking out and myself speaking out, that makes for, you know, a decent portion of the ones that I think have been overly allocated. So my concern is that once the road has been completed, which I do want to thank the council for taking the effort and the city engineers to get that road completed, because at first I was opposed to it, but the improvements have been very nice and worth it. But now that the road's completed, I think we have a better picture of who's benefited from it and who hasn't benefited from it. And to allocate the cost based on acreage, I just don't think makes sense. Specifically because, again, there's 4 or 5 property owners that have no more benefit than the other 18 in that subdivision, and they're being, some of them, myself being the least of them all, are being charged an exorbitant amount of cost compared to everyone else. So if you saw in my letter, I actually had a conversation with the city engineers, because it would not seem reasonable at this point to go back to the allocation and try and change that for everyone. I myself had actually moved into the property post all the community meetings, and I believe one other large property owner himself had also moved into it. So there's just not a lot of good representation, I don't think, from the large property owners. But again, I said I visited with the city engineers, and I'm proposing that, at least for myself and the other property owners, for a discount or reduced allocation to the even allocation cost. And for myself, that'd be a $700 difference. For the other property owners, that's from $1,000 to about $2,300 for the others. So that's my comment. So thank you.
Any questions? Councilmember Gamroth.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Seth, for coming to speak to us this evening. Thank you also for your letters. I know I personally didn't get the opportunity to get back to you, but I really appreciate you taking the time to pen the letter, provide citations, well put together, very articulate, so thank you for that. And it made it really helpful with you providing citations to the statute or the ordinance and everything like that, so much appreciated, even though, again, sorry I failed to get back to you. I guess one question I have for you is, when you bought the property, was it made known to you this financial obligation related to the LAD agreement? Was that made known to you when you purchased the property?
It actually was not. So I was visiting with the neighbor and then made known that the project was in process. At that time, the community meetings had gone through. It had not been approved by you guys to go on with the project yet, but I was not, I guess, part of the community meetings when they had their discussion. And I know there's been discussion that the property owners were in favor of this allocation to begin with, and I actually did speak specifically with the county or the city engineers, and they themselves specifically said that they thought the discussion primarily at the community meetings was more or less on completing the project, less focus on the cost and the allocation there. So, and I do know that the statute does restrict, how you can and cannot allocate it. But if you, in my letter, it does cite the specific statute. I did go read it, and I think an even allocation based on access would have been an allowable method, and certainly a lot more fair to how it benefits the property owners. But again, like I said, at this phase, it does not seem reasonable to go back to the other, 13 or 14 property owners that it's in favor of right now and try and change that for all of them. So.
Follow up. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd agree with you. It seems like the train's kind of already left the station in that regard. But I do think you bring up good points. And my interpretation of the statute that you provided, although I believe it also allows, it says, based on acreage or square footage, it also, you highlighted a portion which made it very helpful that I think your interpretation is probably not off base, but I'm not a lawyer. I do think it warrants a discussion whether we, I'd like to learn more about how that is allocated, whether, what the rationale is for square acreage or square footage compared to equal access. I'm personally curious to learn more about that, because although it may be too late to, rectify it potentially in your case, moving forward, I'd like to have a better understanding of how that process works and which allocation method, I think we'd prefer as a council. Thank you.
Any other questions for Seth? So we'll do also discussion here. So we're not purposely ignoring or anything like that, but we'll have discussion here in a few minutes.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Yep, you bet. Sorry, folks, I got something in my throat. Any others who wish to come up and speak? Okay, let's move into discussion. Councilmember Johnson.
I agree with Councilmember Gamroth. I'd like to know a little bit more about it as well, because I don't think it's fair that it's based, especially if there is equal access, that it's based off of acreage or square footage along the frontage of the road. So I'm in agreement with Councilman Gamroth.
Others? Mr. City Manager, are we beyond the point of no return? I know Seth had mentioned possible reimbursement of some of the allocation or something, or is that off the table? What is our, I did want to address that he brought that up, so.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, council has the option of defeating the ordinance on second reading, which means that there would be zero assessment to any of the property owners out there on behalf of the city. And so the city would take up that cost and cover it with respect to the cost you've already covered with that project. So that's one option, right? Killing the assessment. The other option is passing it on second reading and having staff come back and visit with council to talk about allocation methods. Certainly that can be sort of a philosophic discussion as to what types of methodologies there are out there. And without a doubt, there is a number of ways that this could have been considered. The other side of it is with regard to your role as kind of a board of examiners, if you will, you do get to determine the appropriateness of the role. And so your other option is to consider a different approach. Without a doubt, I would also agree with the speaker that if you do consider a different approach, that has a possibility of increasing everybody's role and assessment. And just as your city manager, I wouldn't recommend that. However, if council wanted to take on additional costs to give a certain portion of property owners a bigger discount, that doesn't come without nuance as well. So we can do whatever you'd like. We can certainly have more discussion without a doubt. It is within your jurisprudence to consider the appropriateness of the role, and that's exactly what we're doing here tonight. I guess if you were looking for a recommendation, my recommendation would be to go ahead and pass on second reading, call for a discussion in work session that you will have the luxury of having the benefit of because of the timing of the third reading of this ordinance. And staff will prepare a conversation with regard to methodology, with regard to what some of the nuance would be pursuant to changing individual roles and assessments, and go from there.
Any thoughts on Carter's recommendation? Yeah, Vice Mayor.
Well, I like the recommendation. I think we should move forward and have a discussion on that. I think that the way, it doesn't really matter what method you use. Because if you flip this around and you went by access, then somebody that has a very small parcel compared to somebody that has a large parcel they're going to pay the same amount of money, and they're going to be probably in here saying, hey, this should be done the opposite direction. You should do it by the amount of land that's owned here. So I agree. I'd like to look at if there is a best practice or best methodology of using when we do this in the future. I'd like to know that. I have a feeling that it all depends on each situation. One thing's going to fit better than the other one does. But in this particular situation, I would like to pass it here tonight and then come back and have a discussion after you are able to prepare some stuff.
I'm getting head nods. So sounds like, Carter, what we'll do is, obviously we're going to pass this on second reading, but we would like to have some type of conversation about that. And so I think that's going to be a deeper conversation, whether that be philosophical, what that looks like, Seth. And I think this is something we'll re-examine and what that looks like. So, yeah, Councilmember Sutherland.
Sorry, just in preparation for the conversation that we'll have, I'm curious, both kind of generally speaking, best practices in terms of allocation, but also curious about what we as a city generally do, like if there's a history of how we manage these agreements. So having both of those pieces of information would be helpful.
Thank you. Councilmember Pollock.
To add to the list of pieces of information, if we can explore this concept of discounts, I'm not clear in my mind how we would make that work equitably with, selecting certain landowners to give a discount to and not others. So I would be interested to hear a little bit from staff about different approaches that we might take in that vein if we were to be interested in that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
The only last thing I would add is that I am not in favor of just saying, okay, let's just not make anybody pay anything, because an improvement has taken place. People are reaping the rewards for that. So whatever we figure out, I would just ask that doing away with any payment whatsoever is not one of those options.
Yep. Did you get all that, Carter?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Could you go ahead and read that back to me?
Please don't make me do that.
Thank you for coming up, Seth, and chatting with us. We appreciate it. Okay, any amendments? Okay, please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Council will now consider consent resolutions. Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
Authorizing a contract with AAA Landscaping LLC for weed mowing and litter abatement. 11A2, authorizing a contract with B&B Sales and Service for weed mowing and litter abatement. 11A3, authorizing a contract with Brian's Go-To Service for weed mowing and litter abatement. 11A4, declaring certain city-owned property as surplus property and authorizing sale of same to the highest bidder. 11A5, authorizing a contract for outside city water service with James A.C. 11A6, authorizing an improvements contract with Wyoming Spirits Incorporated and Kadoma Foundation for the Second and Lincoln utility improvements. 11A7, authorizing an agreement with Wyoming Roofing LLC for the Fire Station Number 3 roof replacement. 11A8, authorizing an agreement with Insidiform Technologies LLC for the North Platte Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation. 11A9, authorizing the filing of applications with the Federal Transit Administration for federal transportation assistance. 11A10, authorizing the filing of an application for a grant under 49 U.S.C. Chapter 53, Title 23, U.S.C. Section 5311, as amended by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, Public Law Number 117-58, November 15th, 2021, and other authorizing legislation to be enacted. 11A11, authorizing the mayor to sign a cover letter of support for the nomination of the Casper Army Airfield as an American World War II heritage site.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent resolutions just read.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Egan-Bretson. Mr. City Manager, do you want to comment on any of these items?
Mr. Mayor, just real quickly, if I could, two projects here are very curious. 11A7 and 11A8, the fire station roof replacement and the North Platte Interceptor rehabilitation project. We've been working on the Interceptor project now for 10 years. The study that first came out that indicated the need to do this work happened in 2012. So this has been a long project that we are finally at a culminating action to bring to you tonight. And so we're very grateful for that. It's a big one though. It's in the neighborhood of $6.5 million to get done. But you should note, the reason I bring these two projects up is that while we are seeing cost increases in a lot of areas with projects we're working on, the City Hall project was certainly one. This project at $6.6 million came in quite a bit less than what we originally estimated. And the fire station roof project, we had done bids a year and a half ago, and they came in at $400,000. our project request tonight is in the neighborhood of 150. So it's a very weird bidding climate. And I just want to bring that to your attention to, as we are entering budget and capital and everything else, it's really hard to gauge which direction to go with a lot of these projects.
Thank you. All right, please cast your vote. Did you want to abstain?
I do. I want to abstain from item 11A1 and 11A3.
Thank you. Please cast your vote. Please record the vote. Oh, sorry.
With Vice Mayor Friel's abstentions noted, motion passes.
Council will now consider minute action items. Please read the consent minute action title.
Rejecting all bids received for the City Hall project safe building remodel.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve the consent minute action agenda items just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Gamroth. Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
At this time, we ask council members to bring forward relevant concerns or items of interest. Councilmember Pollock.
Missed something on the agenda?
Did I miss something?
It's after? That's just out of order on here.
Oh, you're talking about the exec?
The non-consent?
That's
Just have a special agenda here that, okay.
next, after this.
After this.
Oh, okay.
I don't have anything other than questioning your running agenda, I guess.
Duly noted. Councilmember Sutherland.
I don't have anything tonight. I was unable to attend the, oh my gosh, I'm completely having a mind blank. I was unable to attend my board meeting last week, the ARHAPP, sorry. And I will get an update and I'll present next time I have a chance to speak. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
I have nothing relevant to say.
The most honest answer ever. Councilmember Gamroth.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two things. Had a DDA board meeting this last Wednesday. Their season's obviously ramping up because the nice weather's coming. They had their Easter Bunny Bonanza over the weekend, and I went. Great turnout. My daughter loved it. They have their Taco Fest here in a couple weeks. Yeah, just I guess keep a close eye on their events. They're gonna be a lot more frequent, and hoping for another successful season over at the David Street Station. And then also tonight was the pitch night for the Casper Startup Challenge. 6 entrants are vying for $50,000 in seed money, so good luck to them, and thanks to Impact 307 for hosting that every year. I'm excited to see what the results are. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Ingebretson.
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Water board meeting today. Nothing real exciting there. We've got a new member on the board. And Chicago is this weekend at the Ford Wyoming Center, so go out and get your tickets. That's it.
Chicago. I don't have anything. So I guess one thing that I do want to say, obviously we continue to extend our thoughts and prayers for Councilmember Nell as he continues to recover, he and his wife. So I just want to continue to make sure that he is in our thoughts and prayers as he continues to heal, he and his wife. Also, I know I always, I like when young people are in our audience. And so I know this was the most riveting, exciting moment of your life that you're never going to forget. But what I like to point out too is that obviously we saw there were several people here, and there's an opportunity for us to learn of how we have respectful conversation. And I think that's something that your generation, Generation Z, can do a much better job than our generation, is continuing to be able to do those types of things. And remember, we can have respectful conversations and disagree, but we can still like each other. So, thank you. The next meetings of the City Council will be previously, forget something?
Yeah, what she was talking
Ah, there it is. That's what she was talking about. And I just went right over that. Dang it. Man, I was doing so well, too. All right. I am hereby calling a special meeting for the consideration of the purchase of the Casper Business Center to be held next Tuesday, April 26, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. in the council chambers before the regularly scheduled work session. Thank you. Yeah, I gotta keep those. All right. The next meeting of the City Council will be the previously announced special meeting to be held at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, April 26, 2022 in the council chambers, followed by a work session in the council meeting room and a regular council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022 in the council chambers. A notice of an executive session to take place at this date and during this meeting was given. We have matters to discuss regarding personnel, land acquisition, and litigation. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn into an executive session, and at the conclusion of that executive session, to reconvene this regular meeting solely for the purposes of adjournment of this regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Vice Mayor Friel. There being a majority of members present and a motion to adjourn into an executive session, having been moved and seconded, and that motion requiring a 2/3 majority of the council present, please cast your vote. Agree. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
A greater than 2/3 majority of the council present voted in favor of the motion. We are hereby adjourned into an executive session.